Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. I am just going to apologize in advance if there's skipping and stuff like that on the video. I'm doing my best, and I'm doing it at a nondescript location in Philadelphia. I am overburdening my computer right now. You guys should, you can go to Twitter. You can see my setup. It's pretty crazy. But if there's skipping, just I guess work with me here, okay? Today we're talking about the case of Ellen Ray Greenberg. Today is a very important day when it comes to Ellen's case. Today was to be jury selection in a lawsuit, a civil case between the Greenbergs, her parents, Josh and Sandee, and the city of Philadelphia. Though the city of Philadelphia was very sure to say, no, it's not the city, it's employees of the city, but whatever, it was lawyers from the city. Okay, now this is in a case, let's go back. Ellen was a 27-year-old bride-to-be. She had just sent out the save the dates. She was engaged to be married to her live-in fiance, Sam Goldberg. And on January 26th of 2011, she was stabbed to death 20 times. The city of Philadelphia, the medical examiner's office, the police department, indeed the attorney general's office of the entire Commonwealth have maintained for 14 years that Ellen Greenberg did it to herself. She stabbed herself 20 times, 10 times in the back of her head, which is stupid. It's just stupid. But that is what the city of Philadelphia has said all this time. Well, today was where the rubber was going to meet the road. After being able to leap over so many hurdles in their way, Josh and Sandee, through their attorneys, Joe Pedraza and Will Trask, finally we're going to have their day in court. I want to describe. So what I do whenever I cover a case, I go out and I buy a new little $5 Walmart journal. And typically a case, a trial that's a week long will fill up an entire journal. This journal, with the case now being over, we're about that just a few pages into it. I think it's 8 pages or 7 full pages. So I want to describe what happened today a little bit, and then we're going to watch some video, and then hopefully you guys will also ask me some questions along the way that I can address. But let me just describe the events of the last few days. We'll bring up photos of Ellen while we're at it. I live in Western Pennsylvania. Philadelphia is in Southeast Pennsylvania. So I drove here yesterday. Today is Monday, right? Oh my goodness, it all goes together. Yes. So I drove in yesterday, and I am being hosted by some just very gracious, generous folks that are that love Ellen very, very much. And this morning we got up early and we headed over to the courthouse. It's actually at City Hall. I did go past what used to be called the Venice Lofts Apartments. I got some photos of that and so forth. But anyway, this morning we got to the court at about 8:45 a.m. I think my actual sign-in time was 8:20 a.m. But by the time we got in and everything, we get up to the courtroom at about 8:44. The tip staff in the courtroom told us that there was actually going to be a hearing, and rather than move the jury, they were going to move us. So they moved us into a smaller courtroom, and there was a hearing where Judge Michael Erdos gave some rulings on, I think there were 7 different motions. The motions, I think I would characterize by saying some fell in the direction of the defense, which would be the city of Philadelphia. Most fell in the direction of the Greenbergs. These were motions to exclude testimony and motions to exclude evidence, things like that. And it, you know what? I think I've buried the lead here. What happened today is that Josh and Sandee Greenberg settled the case. Not only did they settle this case, they settled the other case that's at the Supreme Court. They came to a resolution of their case. Sorry for burying the lead. Okay? All right. So at about 9 a.m., Judge Erdos comes in. He's angry at what has happened over the weekend. As you guys know, Dr. Marlon Osborne gave a verification. We went through it in a previous video, that after looking at all the evidence that the Greenberg's team had uncovered over the last 14 years, he believes that Ellen Greenberg did not do it to herself. You can go back and see the other video to see that. Okay, so the judge was upset that he learned about this from the media. And Joe corrected him and said, "No, I texted, Your Honor." And he opened his phone. He went, "Oh, sure enough, you let me know. Okay, I'm not angry anymore." Anyway, they went over several motions in limine, and that hearing lasted until about, I think it was about 10:05 a.m. Looking at my notes here. Yeah, the end of the hearing was at 10:05. So for about an hour, they went back and forth. Osborne's lawyer, Gulino's lawyer, McNamee's lawyer, I don't have a picture of him, and on one side, and then Joe and Will on the other side. At 10:05, at the end of this hearing, the judge issued a gag order. Now, what was important about this gag order, or at least the observation that I think is important, is that nobody asked him for a gag order. He was just, apparently, he had had enough. So he issued a gag order that nobody connected to the case could talk about anything about the case except things like times, dates, in terms of when the trial began and stuff like that. They couldn't talk about any of the particulars of the case, which kind of bummed me out because, I don't know, I like the Greenbergs and I like Tom Brennan. I like all the people that are connected to the case. I like to kind of shoot the breeze out in the hallway, and we weren't allowed to do that. So that gag order went into effect at about 10:05. Now, by about 10:30, I was looking down the hallway and I was seeing Joe Pedraza and Will Trask speaking with the other attorneys. They would talk in the hallway, and then Joe and Will would go over to Josh and Sandee. They even went into another room. And we have not gone back in to do the voir dire for jury yet at all. And then the city's attorneys would disappear. Then a few minutes later, they would reappear. Joe and Will would reappear out in the hallway, and they would talk. They were far. We couldn't hear anything that was going on specifically, but I started to say, "We've got a settlement that's coming. I'm thinking it's going to come in a few minutes." And sure enough, at about 11:15, all of the lawyers that were remaining, Dr. Osborne's lawyer was excused because everything was dropped against him. The four lawyers went into the judge's chambers at about 10:45. I'm sorry, 11:15. And at about 11:25, the court tipstaff excused the jury panel. We started to see the jury coming out of the courtroom. We were standing in the hallway during all of this. At about 11:31, the city's lawyers emerge out of the courtroom and walk past us saying no comment. And at about 11:32, Joe and Will did about a 15-minute presser, and I want to share that with you guys now. And please forgive me as I kind of make my way trying to figure out all the ways to make this work today. Hopefully this works. Let's see. I can make it work no matter what. That's where they said no comment.
Well, the good news is no more gag. Except for certain.
You can hear Joe say, "Good news is no more gag." Case was over.
My colleague Will Trask, we have resolved the matter. So the litigation as to the Greenbergs and the city, both at the Supreme Court level and here at the trial court level, has been resolved.
That is super important, guys. The Supreme Court case, that is a different case, that made it to the Supreme Court on appeal, trying to figure out if Josh and Sandee Greenberg had standing to sue the medical examiner's office to force them to change the manner of death in their daughter's case, is now done. There will be no more Supreme Court anything. There will be no more Greenberg v. Gulino, which was what this case was.
There will be a review by the medical examiner's office. Hopefully, we hope will be consistent with what Dr. Osborne just said in his verification. And we proceed forward in getting justice for Ellen. From our vantage point, extremely happy.
What's next?
Well, we'd like to find out who the murderer or murderers of Ellen is/are.
Guys, so we are done. We are done with the civil suits. We are done. We are now moving into whodunit. That's what I just heard. I think that's what you just heard, right? We're now moving into the whodunit phase.
At that stage right now.
Yeah, we'd like to go that. Yeah, and we're going to pursue that.
So not undetermined, not undetermined, you want to go right?
Well, whatever the medical examiner's office says, really doesn't concern me. What did was Dr. Osborne's verification, which to us and to my clients was worth more than money. And with that, I think announced the steps forward to bring in the people to justice who are responsible for this homicide.
What tipped the scales this morning, Joe? What happened behind closed doors?
Well, a lot of things go into account. Trials, there's a great deal of risk, for one thing. My clients have been fighting this. For them, 14 years. For us, 5 years. There's a lot of costs, a lot of expense, a lot of risks when it comes to like appeals. So those factors came in. The consideration by the city, the payment to them was factored in, meaning to my clients, as well.
Okay, so Josh and Sandee received an undisclosed number, an amount of money, probably close to make them whole from everything that they've spent so far, but they won't discuss exactly what it is. It seems that they got two things, that they got a payment and they got the city to, or the medical examiner's office to say, we will review the case.
As really Dr. Osborne's verification, which we got pre-trial, that was the thing we've been waiting for now for over 5 years.
So Osborne settles. What is the city's part of this settlement? What have they agreed to do now?
Well, the city will take the manner of death of Ellen and do their own separate examination through the medical examiner's office. So hopefully that'll be a new investigation. All the information that we've acquired over the years will be presented, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't reach the same result that Dr. Osborne gave out on Saturday. So that's the first step, and they're supposed to.
And I think this is an important piece that Joe has given us here, that not only will the medical examiner's office look at what they have in the medical examiner's office, but also the evidence that they have collected over their 14 years in searching for justice for their daughter. And Joe is hopeful that they will come to the conclusion that Ellen died by homicide.
Do it expeditiously, and then they'll pay my clients some money.
So the city is reopening the investigation at this point.
Yes, they've agreed to do that.
The police investigation or the ME investigation?
The ME investigation is the manner of death. Nobody controls the police. They're a separate entity.
But when you talk about finding a killer, that's a police investigation, not an ME investigation.
It can be, but there's not just the Philadelphia Police Department.
Chester County, will they pick it up?
I doubt that, but there are other organizations
Such
that
as?
Deal with law enforcement.
Federal
as well as state.
Joe, a lot of these cases have taken a period of time. Is there any expectation for how long they have or they're committed to?
You ask me that after 5 years of fighting this case and my clients 14 years of looking for justice? No, the answer is no, but I think we've gotten over the major hurdles. The question will be, how receptive will other law enforcement agencies be to pursuing this?
Can you explain why you think Dr. Osborne suddenly, after 14 years, reverses course on Saturday?
I would like to think that it was a coming to Jesus moment. for lack of a better phrase.
I don't think that Osborne switched because he came to Jesus. Maybe he did come to Jesus, but I think that his incentive was more that he was kind of hung out to dry by the city. He was now being represented by his own council, not by the council that was being paid for by the city. And I think that's the reason why he's like, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to be on the stand. I was just on Surviving the Survivor with Joel and Joe and Julia. And yeah, we all discussed this. I think the Osborne was like, I can't afford this. I'm not indemnified for this. I need to settle. I think that's the reason that he did that.
I admire that he did it. It took courage. He did it apparently without the knowledge of the other defendants or without the approval of the city. And it was the thing that my clients needed to begin to, get some closure in this matter.
I'm sorry, in a criminal investigation or prior to that, are you planning to depose Dr. Marlon Osborne to find out why he changed his decision from homicide undetermined to eventually suicide?
I'm not saying that we would be doing any type of criminal investigation. I think that's going to be left up to either a federal or state agency to make that determination. And to the extent one or more steps forward, they'll have to decide
What
how
would
they
be
go.
the state agency?
Attorney General's office would be one. There are other district attorney offices that would have jurisdictions such as Chester County, such as Montgomery County. The game of poker in this game changed when Dr. Osborne said, I think with this evidence here, no, in my professional opinion, this is not a suicide.
Now, you're ruling out the city police department being involved. Why are you doing that?
Because frankly, from our vantage point, they were not very cooperative. They were not very cooperative when Guy DeAndrea, when he was with the district attorney's office back in 2015 through 2017, they did not want to help. And I don't believe that there'll be much help now. All we got from the police department was video that was seized, all of a sudden no longer exists. So I take that as a great deal of disinterest. And even the officers that we sued in this case did not seem to be open to any type of discussion. So.
Joe, who
If this
initiated
trial
settlement?
had gone forward, would Osborne have been put on the witness stand as a witness for your team?
Yes, that was a condition of him or us settling the matter would be that he would be called to trial and testify.
By the way, in the hearing before this, where they were going through their motions in limine, I have to say that as a layperson, I think that the city's attorneys were completely outmatched by Joe Pedraza and Will Trask. And the reason I say that is there was one moment where they were talking about Dr. Osborne being a witness, and the city's attorney goes, well, if you want to impeach your own witness, go for it. And Joe actually kind of chuckled. He's like, impeach my own witness? What are you talking about? No, he will be a hostile witness. It was one of those moments, and you could see on the other guy's face, like, I just lost that argument for sure. I really think that the selection of Joe and Will was a terrific selection. These guys are top-notch attorneys.
Would have been likely a hostile witness to us because we would have gone after him as if he had remained a party in the case.
Joe, who initiated settlement talks this morning?
This morning? Well, it's not the first time we've had discussions. It just kind of, progressed forward naturally. And after some of the rulings and some of the indications from the bench, you begin to read them. Look, this case is unprecedented. Nobody has ever gotten this far. And the legal principles, while people out there may say, oh, well, it's pretty straightforward. It's not. And in the legal process, there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen. And there are a lot of minefields, and all you have to do is graze against one, and the case is done. So to get to where we are today, the number of hurdles that we had to jump over, the appeals we had to win and get reversals on, that's the culmination of where we are today. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I know I'm putting the cart way ahead of the horse, but if you're looking into your crystal ball, how soon would a criminal investigation begin? How soon could an indictment potentially come? I mean, talking days, months, years, what do you think?
that'll be left to the whatever agency decides to get involved, and I hope somebody will step forward, but I hope it was yesterday.
In the time being, is Ellen's manner of death, does it remain suicide while these proceedings, while this review is happening?
Yes. I don't know if there'll be a rescinding of the death certificate pending their investigation and review. I doubt it. I suspect that they'll probably just do the review and then decide whether there needs to be a change to the death certificate, which will either be an amendment or they'll just retract the original one and reissue a new one. I don't know, how they're going to do it.
Joe, I know you can't give the amount of the monetary settlement, but can you talk about the factors that went into calculating it, like, in terms of,
That guy's got a radio voice, man.
your argument for setting the amount that you're going to get, that the Greenberg's going to get?
Sure, it was, well, the main consideration was the cost and expense out of pocket that the clients paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars to date. So that was the main consideration, that they get, a big chunk of that back, if not all of it. And then the reality of the case itself. We're elated with the rulings on Friday from the trial court allowing us to go forward. Frankly, if you had asked me on Thursday night before those rulings, I would have said, I think the case is going to get dismissed. That's really how much of an outlier we are within the law. So there's so
It's
much
important.
risk in this case, and it could easily have been dismissed. I give a lot of credibility, a big shout out to the First Judicial District for how it's handled a very difficult case, a very emotional case, and devoted a great deal of manpower on their own to get justice. And, it restored my faith in the judicial system. It
Joe,
really did
today,
in
does
this
the
case.
settlement say that this basically, there were mistakes made 14 years ago, and now, after all of this time, we're going to go back and look at those mistakes?
No, it just simply says that they will revisit the circumstances surrounding Ellen's death and decide whether there needs to be a change to the death certificate. The reason it's framed that way is because nobody can, at this point, under our law, nobody can tell the medical examiner how to rule or say, change it. That individual has that much exclusive power, which shocked me when I first got involved in this case, and has been our fight from the beginning all the way through, and which is the issue, as far as I'm concerned, in front of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court right now. So we couldn't direct and say, you must change this if you want to settle the case, because the blowback from the city was, that's discretion that is in the medical examiner only, and we cannot dictate that.
Osborne won't be involved, even though he signed the death certificate.
That's
right.
I doubt that he will be involved in the signing of a new or amended death certificate, but he may be consulted. And that's a great question. Maybe ask the Attorney General's office. Did they ever speak with Dr. Osborne before they said that the suicide should be upheld?
Just for
They never did.
Just for clarification, so Osborne came out and said he changed his opinion from.
You guys recognize that voice? It's Joel
suicide
from
to
Surviving the Survivor.
But now, as it stands at this very moment, it is still ruled a suicide pending this review. It was my understanding that Josh and Sandee did not want to settle at all unless that happened today. So
Well-
as of right now, it is still a suicide.
Yeah, we cannot change that because that's the medical examiner's office in its present composition must make that change. Dr. Osborne's position has been, I'm not with the office anymore. I don't even have a Pennsylvania medical license, so I don't have the authority. We disagreed with that, but we're not going to get to resolution on that issue. We just have to accept that.
Are you worried, though, that they do this review and just come back with the same findings and maybe don't do a proper review?
Frankly, I could care less what the office comes back with. I got Dr. Osborne's verification. That man is the only person who knows all the circumstances from the beginning to as we stand here today, and he said it's not a suicide, and he made a mistake.
But he didn't say homicide.
No, but a wise judge today pointed out that there are essentially four manners of death that you can pick, right? And there's what? Accidental, there's suicide, and there's natural causes, and homicide. Well, the other three don't fit the grade here with Ellen, so maybe Dr. Osborne wasn't as bold as we wanted him to be, but we accomplished the objective.
Where are the Greenbergs? I thought they would be here.
They are actually in the courtroom, and you are welcome to speak with them too, okay? I think they're in the courtroom just down the hallway.
Thanks so much. Congratulations.
Joe?
Do you plan on contacting the current medical examiner to ask if they can get involved?
Well, we and everybody can
That's Laura
report this.
Diamond
We
from
are
ABC
open,
2020.
ready, willing, and able to provide whatever assistance to the medical examiner's office that we can. I know our neuropathologist would make himself available. I think Guy DeAndrea would make himself available. We would make ourselves available. So, all they got to do is call, and we're there.
And then what comes of Galino and McNamee now?
Well, I guess Detective McNamee goes back to his job with the Philadelphia Police Department. Dr. Galino is no longer with the medical examiner's office here in Philly, as I understand it. So whatever he's doing now, he'll go back to doing. But with what Josh and Sandee did in this case, I think that they created a history that everybody's going to have to live with and explain down the road.
Despite
Joe,
this
you-
morning's developments, do you still believe there was a conspiracy here?
Yes.
Joe, you talked about pivoting to looking for the person responsible or persons responsible for Ellen's death. Does that include any type of civil action?
Well, that's putting the horse or the cart before the horse. You just can't willy-nilly sue somebody on a wrongful death and say, hey, you're responsible for this death without a reasonable basis in fact. And at this juncture, that's what we're missing. But yes, the answer is, could there be a wrongful death case down the road? Yeah, because at this point, as far as we're concerned, there's been fraudulent concealment of whoever the murderer or murderers is.
All right. So let's that was the 15 minutes or so that we spent with Joe and Will. I'm going to do my best here. Man, I'm not in my normal system here, so you guys are going to have to bear with me a little bit. But I'm going to take a look at your comments here. Let me just bring this up. I saw a couple things. I saw Mooney giving some memberships. Mooney, thank you very much for gifting those memberships. I think I also saw a super chat. I like to give priority to that. Let's see. Yeah, Laura Liz, thank you, she says, for all your hard work. This case needs the attention. Ellen and her family deserve the settlement, but so much more. And I think they will get a lot more. Let me bring up. Yeah, you guys can't see that. There we go. I think that they will get more. I do. I think it's just a matter of time. Oops, where am I? Bijheen gifted some memberships. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Let me clear that. We'll scroll on up here, see what you guys are saying. Helen says, Gavin, so now the parents have settled what happens now. Will there still be justice for Ellen and her parents? Yeah, as Joe said, the main, I guess, attention that they're going to put to this now is moving on from, was Ellen murdered, which they now have an answer, a legal answer. I mean, we all knew this, right? But was Ellen murdered? Yes, we now know that. Now, step 2, who did it? It's full on a whodunit at this point. And I think that we've got some pretty good suspects, and that's what they will be moving on and doing. Let's see. Gavin, Women's Warrior says, which is ludicrous because, in my opinion, it's obvious who done it. I just really can't get my head around how this happened. It's just so bizarre. I feel so sorry for our parents. I'm happy for Josh and Sandee right now. Now, the reality is that they don't get their daughter back. They never get their daughter back. But But I think they now can properly mourn their daughter after 14 years of trying to convince the world that their daughter did not take her own life. So I'm pretty happy for them right now. Kim says, so happy to catch a live No Better News to listen to you discuss as I work late at my U.S. government classroom this evening. Well, thank you very much, Kim. Helen says, Gavin, they said they will review the case, but did they change the cause of death? What is stopping them from keeping it and unaliving? Sorry, this. Yeah, so what Joe said in that presser was, the Dr. Osborne says he doesn't have the power to change the death certificate. Joe disagrees with that, but he says he has no license in Pennsylvania, therefore he can't do it. The city is saying the medical examiner's office will take a look at it. And that combined with the verification that came from Dr. Osborne saying that this was not Ellen unaliving herself, that was good enough for the Greenbergs. And we're going to get to their comments here in just a second. Is it federal because her fiance now lives in a different state? I don't think so. I don't think it's federal at all. But they might be able to bring in the FBI to assist in the investigation. It's possible. Denise says, I hope people are keeping a close eye on Sam Goldberg. I really feel he may try to run or hide. I don't think that he will, but I hope he doesn't. I think that he definitely needs to be investigated. Lee says, Gavin, do you know what agency the reporter with the deep voice is from? Was there local Philly media there? Yeah, most of the people there were local. I don't know specifically where he was from, but I think he was a local radio station. Okay. Keep going. Mary Lou Henkel says, Gavin, great show on STS today. Thank you. Thank you. I was honored that he invited me on. It was good to meet Joel in person for the first time. Jersey Jen, I was on STS to see Gavin and had to get some things done. Well, I'm glad you're here, Jersey Jen. Becca says, I have a radio podcast voice as well. Well, thank you so much. Anytime I try to make my voice better, it ends up not making it any better at all. Lee T says, Gavin is doing some great camera and sound work. Yeah, holding my phone up nice and high. Yeah, those guys were all pros there. I was the wannabe in that little gaggle. Couple more things. Darlene was late to join, not sure if question was asked. Did Sam attend the funeral? Sam did attend the funeral, so did the rest of his family. Kelly Wentworth, I want to see if Governor Shapiro will now come clean with his handling of this cover-up. Kelly, that is a good segue into this next video. This happened directly after the presser with Joe and Will. Here we go.
I'm good. I'm real good.
You said in there you weren't happy. Why are you not happy?
Because I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. I'm pleased. We have gotten the main thing, the most important thing that I wanted was the verification by Osborne that says this was not a suicide. That's our number one thing. There was nothing else as important as that. Anything else we got was whatever, part of the game. But that was number one. And I was prepared to say, whatever money I spent is gone. I don't care about the money. I want Ellen's suicide taken care of. And with that verification, we can go anywhere and say anything we want, that Ellen was not a victim of suicide. Now, I don't know, I'm under the impression the city may be doing another exam. I don't know what the purpose of that exam is, I haven't figured it out. But if they should say it was suicide again, we have Galino's, Osborne's verification that it's not. That's detailed.
So we've waited 14 years to get to a place like today. We are very, very, very optimistic for the future, and I'm glad that this is playing out so that everyone can see what we've been through, because it hasn't been an easy road. There have been plenty of sleepless nights. There have been plenty of heartache. There's no Mother's Day, there's no Father's Day, but I hope today we made Ellen proud of us, because we certainly were very proud of her.
We did for
as her
Ellen.
parents.
We did for Ellen what we wanted. She did not commit suicide. There is nobody in the world who can say Ellen committed suicide, and that's the most important thing. There's nothing else more important. I think it just took our sales out today. You know, it's a big day. Got up early. Stressful day dealing with judges we don't know what we're dealing with, and we're sad about it. I think in some perverse way, we're sad that it might be over. It's over. We won.
Josh, you're out of pocket for how much money did you spend on this whole investigation and all the lawyers and all the, you know,
Close
suits?
to $800,000.
No
Close
comment.
to.
And can't tell you.
We're not allowed to.
We can't tell you. You know,
But are you going to be made whole? It seemed like the lawyer said you're going to be made whole for it if you're.
Pretty close.
Okay.
Very close.
Sandee, Joe Pedraza was talking about now finding the killer or killers of your daughter Ellen.
I think today we're not going to discuss that yet, but it's not totally over. Maybe that.
How do you do that though? How do you find?
Well, there
This
are
is
people.
going to play out in the
Universe?
hierarchy in Pennsylvania. That's not our, job to
Well, part
find
of
the
it.
killer.
Part of it is everyone that touched this case that continued to say it was suicide now has stains on those fingers, and those stains, may come back to haunt them in some way. You'll hear. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I didn't eat anything. You'll hear about it, but right now today, it's to discuss that Ellen did not commit suicide, and there's no doubt about it.
And what's next for you guys?
We'll find out something to do. Okay?
Thank you.
It's just, it's sort of like we were here and now we're done. And that slope sort of took some air out of us. Ellen did not commit suicide. That was number one, always was number one. Sandee and I told you that I've already come to grips with the money spent, that I didn't care if we got no money. I can't make any comments about money. But I'm going to tell you that I didn't care. I wanted the suicide thing fixed.
Let me ask you about your continued statement, Ellen, quote, Ellen did not commit suicide.
Correct.
I feel you're speaking to city officials with that.
I'm speaking to the world. I'm speaking to the world. Ellen did not commit suicide. Anybody who wants to read that medical examiner's report or anything, go ahead. She didn't commit suicide. Read the verification. Did you guys ever all of you see the verification?
Letter.
It's kind of explicit, isn't it?
Forgive me if this is
Go ahead,
fast, but
Joe.
why do you think that Dr. Osborne suddenly?
I have no idea.
But the verification
Look at Sandee.
statement you referred to, all the items that he lists were things that you and your.
Look at Sandee. She is so disciplined. So disciplined. They do such a good job. I am as proud as I possibly can be of these two people. They're not gloating. They're not, bathing in glory over being right. They don't care. They just want the world to know that Ellen didn't do it to herself. And they're very easy to look up to.
Detective uncovered.
Yes.
The body was moved because of the
Yes.
wrong way bus. So,
Yes.
So
Yes.
you feel vindicated, that.
We feel, and our lawyers felt, we had evidence, and we had a case. That's it. We had evidence.
That you dug up yourself and you're.
Not me personally.
Well,
I didn't dig anything up.
right.
But we had evidence that Ellen did not commit suicide. And the whole thing was bogus. The day that, what's her name, Emery?
Lindsay Emery.
Said that the wounds were post-mortem, we went from
That was
thinking
when
this
she
was...
did her deposition in May of 21.
That's when
And
we...
they withheld that information
For
for
2
a year
years.
and a half before that. They knew, the city knew that. and, or the medical examiner's office knew that and withheld that from us.
That's when we knew there was a cover-up. That's the day, that's the time, that's the day, the year, the time, whatever you want to call it. We knew there was a cover-up, and they knew we knew.
Sandee, do you think you'll get a little better sleep tonight?
When I get home to Florida and I sleep in my own bed, I'll
Did you ever
be the
take a
happiest
test?
person.
Did you ever take a test, and after the test is all gone, you go, we've gone.
Josh, on my show the other day, you said that you believe this was actually a strangulation.
Yes.
Not a stabbing death.
Yes. I think all those wounds and the deep wounds were a cover-up for strangulation. I think my daughter was strangled. There was a number of things. Number one, her wrists had bruises like this. They had been restrained. The police said there was no, you know what I'm talking about. There was no
Defensive wounds.
There was no defensive wounds. Number two, why did she have a gash on the top of her head? Does somebody, this is Tom Brennan, I hope you all know him. He's a very important guy, I think. There was a gash on the top of her head. I think that was when he hit her with a knife, and that's why he changed knives. And then I think he made a phone call. And the phone call told him to make it look like a suicide. Go back and put some stabs wounds in her. None of them are straight. They're like this, all over the place. Then we got the,
Josh,
on the net.
I don't think you should.
What?
You should be saying your opinion.
I'm giving my opinion.
You should. I think maybe not now.
I said what I had to say. Look at the evidence, look at the wounds, and see what you think. I don't think that she was stabbed to death.
Which way are you leaving?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
can't.
know.
I've been told by two women not to talk, so I don't know anything.
What about you?
Good man. Ask this guy. Ask this guy.
Yeah,
What
what
do
about you,
think?
Tom? What's your theory on the
Pardon me?
homicide?
Tom, what's your
Your
theory?
theory on the homicide, Tom?
Yes. Yeah. What do you mean?
What she died? Did she die
How
of
was she
stab?
killed? And, yeah.
There's, those are medical questions that, with all the training and everything that I've had, you have to consider everything. And we lost a lot of evidence, okay? Number one, we lost evidence from the body, okay? Number two, we lost the crime scene because the city gave the property manager permission to clean and
Let me pause here for a second. Not that one. This one. Sorry, give me just a second here, guys. Asking what woman told him to stop talking. It was not an attorney. It was, there were two women there that are close to Josh and Sandee. I'm not going to give you their identities, but they're close to Josh and Sandee, and that was good advice. How do I keep going? Give me a second here, guys. I'm not at my home studio.
sanitize the scene. So we lost a lot of the physical evidence that would have pointed one way or the other. So as a result, we have to work with what we have. And we have autopsy photographs which indicate there were wounds to the neck, and there's, when you do lift the flap, there's hemorrhage here. And myself and Dr. Ross, when we were going through the photographs, identified hemorrhage here, which indicates manual strangulation. Okay? Then you have the two wounds that they investigated. Their expert says they're post-mortem. Okay? Those are the only two wounds that we can talk about. Okay? We can't talk about any of the other wounds. All that evidence is gone. Okay? The only specimen we had to examine was the one that said, it was post-mortem. So we have to go with what we have. And
which makes you wonder if a case can be made against the perpetrator, which Tom has an opinion on that here in just a minute.
The possibility of manual strangulation and the wrists, they said there was no defensive wounds, okay, on Ellen. Well, when you look at the autopsy report, autopsy photographs, her wrists have been excised. and there's damage to both her wrists. There's some cuts on her hands. So those, for any...
There are also some bruises on her hands, like on kind of where your thumb meets the palm of your hand. There are bruises there too. There are cuts. There's definitely defensive wounds. I don't know why the police kept saying no defensive wounds. They're definitely there.
Anybody to say there are no defensive wounds, they're crazy. You know, it's there
Exactly.
in, you know,
Tom
in
knows.
living color. The wound to the top of the head, that's an indication of fight or flight. Either Ellen was fighting or she was trying to get away. Okay?
Given all the problems with the evidence that you just discussed,
And-
what's the possibility of ever finding who did it?
Well, you can, there's different things that are available to us now that we can use to get where we have to get, okay? And, you know, we have all the time in the world, okay? There is no statute of limitations on homicide. So we have all the time in the world to put together what we need to put together to get there, okay?
This is a man who's investigated
As
800
one,
homicides.
Police officer told me, you know, won't it be nice, Tom, to just put your hand on somebody's shoulder and say, hey, come with me.
And you think that will happen in this case?
I think there'll come a day when you're gonna see that.
How soon?
No, come on.
It's just like everything else, you know.
Josh.
When I met Josh and Sandee, I told them, I said, you're gonna have to be extremely patient, because this is gonna take years. And they said, why? And I said, well, that's Philadelphia. So, you know, all of this, you know, the way it comes about, this is another step towards the finish.
Joe,
Okay?
Joe Pedraza suggested that maybe the FBI is going to get involved.
Maybe.
Maybe, you know.
We're not done. Let's just put it that way.
Maybe the FBI will get involved. The Pennsylvania State Police have a unit that I started, okay? All they do is investigate cold cases.
Maybe
They
a
haven't
new-
had the opportunity to look at this. And the state police, they aren't obligated to anybody, you know?
You never know.
You never know. So.
It's
you know,
not, but we, and now, I'm
It
sorry. go
is
ahead.
not suicide.
That's right.
So the criminal investigation
Could be.
is on. I don't care
Yeah.
what Chester County says. I don't care about the DA. I don't care about Shapiro. Shapiro can kiss my ass. Okay?
Colorful.
For what he didn't do, he should be kicked out of office, really. But anyway, for politics being aside, I think in time, we'll get where we have to be.
Back to Shapiro for a minute, because I've been very critical of him. What's your take? I mean, obviously you're not a fan.
No,
You think it was
no.
willful negligence?
No, he should still be a township supervisor. You know,
Explain what.
he's a good man. He's a good man. He's a good mouth. He's a good man at, you know, showing
Look
up
how
at
the
airplane
press walked
crashes and
away.
stuff like that. But, you know,
Only Joel and I
You think he
remain.
turned a blind
and
eye?
raising money for campaigns. But, you know, as far as this stuff goes, he should go mind his own
You
business.
think he turned a blind eye intentionally?
Yes, because the same people that were in the DA's office at the time this occurred
Right.
were the same people in the Attorney General's office when he got the case. Okay?
Well, they did what he
Jennifer
said.
Selber, who is now his chief counsel,
Go, Tom,
was in
go.
charge of the prosecution unit in the Philadelphia DA's office when this case came to the DA's
Right.
office. Okay?
So they were reviewing themselves.
And I'll never forget what she said to me when I had a meeting with
Who?
her. She said,
Selber?
I'm not trying, yes, Selber. I'm not trying to protect the Philadelphia Police Department. I said, imagine that coming from you.
And there we go. Good old Tom. All right, guys. I'm just going to go through a couple more comments here real quick, and then I'm going to call it a night. Vicky Maynard, Gavin, you have the verification? Yes, I do, Vicky. I covered it in a live stream on Saturday. It's the last live stream I will put it either on Patreon or my website. I just, with the travel to get here as quickly as I could, I didn't get a chance to post that, but I will as quickly as I can. Jeannie says, do Josh and Sandee want the killer found? Yes, they definitely do. But they're gonna let people who investigate that stuff investigate it. I think the press walked away because he's talking about a beloved governor, and Josh Shapiro is beloved in the state of Pennsylvania. But I think that he hid the truth for 4.5 years for people that he knows and likes. That's what I think. A couple other things. Gavin, will you interview Josh and or Sandee or have them on the show? They're both heroes in my eyes. They went above and beyond. Yeah, definitely. Josh and Sandee are heroes of mine as well. We will have them on the show as quickly as possible, but I do want to give them an opportunity to rest. I also need to travel back to Western Pennsylvania, so it's going to be a while before we do that. Helen says, oh yeah, we hit 110,000 subscribers. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. Hey, I know I didn't get to everybody's comments today, but you guys will have to forgive me because I'm just doing the best that I can here in my little makeshift studio out here in Philadelphia. I'm so grateful for my hosts for letting me set up in here. If you go to Twitter, you'll see a picture of me saying, they said, make yourselves at home. I definitely made myself at home here. So it's a mess, but I will be cleaning it up and driving back to Western Pennsylvania tomorrow. And so there won't be a live stream tomorrow. I'm not going to have it in me, but I will be back on Wednesday, which is February 5th. So if you have not subscribed, I invite you to do so. Also, please remember that you can always go over to my website. Let me see if I can bring that up for you guys. Yeah, head on over to my website to read all about Ellen's case, to go through a lot of the videos I've done, lots of photos. I mean, there's just so much, so many documents. There's a timeline. There's just so much, guys. There's just so much. So please do that. And while you're on your internet browser, head on over to the Fish Tank, which is where we hang out on Facebook. I'd love to have you over there. With that, guys, I'm going to go to dinner. I'm going to dinner. I'm looking forward to it. Tom and I are going to go grab some Chinese food. That's the plan anyway. And yeah, so I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for your support. Thanks for those super chats. You guys are awesome. Thanks for gifting those memberships. Bid you adieu. I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.